Alright, so this is the project of the week. I took the wiring harness and I did a refurbish on it. As you know, this car was in an accident where there was a small fire by the radiator, where the radiator had smashed into the front of the engine, and it was pushed back into the alternator, and it was melted connectors and so forth in the front of the engine. Plus the crash had knocked a few of the connectors off and chopped some of the wires off. So early on I picked up this harness, which was from a 3.7 liter Challenger, and while some of the connectors are different, this is the body side of the harness, not the ignition side of the harness, and most of the connectors were good enough to make a complete harness out of the forward section, which is mostly common items like the headlights and impact sensors and things like that, the radiator also being one of them. So I got fortunate that none of the actual impact sensors were knocked off, because that's a problem. You're not supposed to splice the SRS system together. The wires are twisted in a specific length and so forth, just to assure that there's the right amount of resistance in the circuit to create a complete loop for the SRS system to read. So it's not a good idea to be cutting and splicing wires for the impact sensors or anything else related to the SRS system. But I took all the plastic casings off one at a time, otherwise it gets very confusing. As you can see, it's a rat's nest. And unwrapped all the joints and cleaned off what was salvageable. What wasn't salvageable, I took from this harness and cleaned up and replaced over here. Now, I rewrapped all the joints after I cleaned everything up, which there was a lot of the dirt, debris from normal wear and tear, but also the remnants of the fire extinguisher material have blown into some of these house casings and so forth with the wiring. So I cleaned that off, inspected the wire, made sure that the wire didn't have any breaks. Any place there was a break, I repaired it, and then put the new cleaner casings back on. And I used this tape here to rewrap the joints that I got on the internet, which you say, well, it looks like regular old electrical tape, but the difference is this is your electrical tape, and this is has more of a, it's a little stiffer. It's like a little more cloth. It's got a cloth in it, and more importantly, the glue is a little bit better, and it's specifically used in high heat areas and for this application. Whereas the glue with electrical tape would tend to start getting greasy and unravel if it was right next to the engine. This tape is meant to, it's meant exactly for these joints, to retape them up and seal them up good. So I got that going on. This is a little trick I use to reuse these clips that you hold the wiring harness to the car with. They're just little loops that the only way you can undo them is to snip them, and rather than throw them away if they still have the little end and it's in good shape, I just run a wire tie or a plastic wire tie through there and reuse the loop. You can see how that's done right there. There's a little place where this piece used to loop around and come through and wrap around the harness. Here's one still on the wiring harness. So that's a little trick if you don't feel like hunting down all of these little clips and so, and that's another reason to go ahead and buy used harness if you can, because each of these clips are individual and each one of them is different, obviously, for plugging into specific areas, and some of them are not available, so it's good to get a hold of another harness. The other good reason is that harness cost about $250, and this harness complete, or that harness complete I should say, even the body side of the harness is $1,200 item if you were to try to purchase it from Dodge. So it's well worth the effort of rebuilding the harness. And again, this is only half the harness. This is the harness that does the body side. It's not the ignition or the engine control module or anything like that. So I still have that ahead of me. This took me about 6 hours to completely go through, clean up all the connectors, and it's about ready to go back in the car. So happy days. Got a lot of this little stuff still ahead of me before I can get the car back in running order. So that's it for now. Thank you.